What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Game Time Pod. I am Isaiah Hoffman along with Daryl and Ramon. We are back in the NFL draft. Has finally concluded. We're kicking things off with the NFL draft. We have got a lot to talk about in this one. Obviously, we did our mock draft a couple days ago, last week. Hope you guys did enjoy that vid. Thank you guys for all the love and support on the podcast and the clips. We've got more clips coming out. Not only today, but also this week. We've got a lot to talk about with the NFL draft. Obviously, Cleveland and Jacksonville made that trade at the top of the draft. We're going to talk about some of the quarterbacks and, of course, our winners and losers. But first, we're going to start with what everybody's been talking about in the media, what me and Daryl were talking about on the phone during Thursday night's draft. We are going to talk about Ramon's favorite player, Shedeur Sanders, is who we're going to be discussing to start out the draft. And they want me to go first here to discuss Shedeur Sanders and kind of my thoughts. I did put out, and I forgot to send it in the group chat, I did put out a solo video on, I think it was Friday or Saturday night. It was after round 2, so that would be Friday night. I put out a video because I just had to get something out, some thoughts. I didn't really think about it. I just turned the camera on and kind of recorded. And I think one of the first things I said was, this isn't a race issue, right? Because everybody in the media keeps trying to put it that way, especially, certain people in the media have tried to spin it in that narrative, and I don't think that's what it is. At the end of the day, I think it really does come down to Dion and some of the anonymous sources, and I'm going to say it again, like I said in the video I made on Friday, all these anonymous people that put out these reports, that wasn't right to do. I don't agree that they did that. And then my other thing about it is I think Dion definitely had a play in this. And I see a lot of people on X and Twitter saying, oh, well, Lonzo didn't have this same type of, well, Lonzo was looked at as an all-star type of talent, right? He was compared to Steve Nash come draft day. He had the talent to back this up. And my stepdad put it well too, is Shedeur didn't have the talent to back up all this ego that people were saying he had in his draft interviews. And I think that's the other big part of this too, is the draft interviews. These draft interviews and everything we're hearing, there's too many reports of the draft interviews being bad for me not to think the draft interviews played a part in this. I think the media was one part. I think Dion was another, but I really do think it was his football play and his draft day interviews is what kind of made all this go bad. And then I think Colin Cowherd did a good part of it too, where he said, he didn't go to the Reese's Bowl. He went to the East-West Shrine Bowl. He didn't participate in the Combine. He could have changed the narrative on himself if he would have done more of this stuff leading into the draft, and he chose not to. So this falls on Shedeur, but this also falls on a lot of other things as well, in my opinion. I still have a couple more thoughts, but that's kind of where I sit at right now. I do think this is Shedeur's fault from a football standpoint and some other standpoints, but I also think the media had some play in this as well. And I think the league sent a statement here. The league definitely sent a statement, and I give props to the league for, going with the guys that they wanted to pick and not reaching for quarterbacks, because we've seen that happen the last couple of years. Who's next?
Oh, that was it?
Yeah, that was it. That was it. I didn't want to go too long. I mean, I'll add some more stuff in there, but I want to hear what else you guys have to say, because I definitely think I forgot some stuff, and maybe you guys will respark it, but I didn't want to bring up who he got drafted by until we kind of get over all the first round and second round stuff that went on.
I'll go up. Here's my thought, right? Oftentimes we look to point the finger, and a wise person told me a long time ago, it's not always the devil. It's not always them. You got to look in the mirror sometimes. And I'll say this about Sanders. I'm going to preface it by saying this. I still believe he's going to be a better quarterback in the NFL than Ward. I believe it with all my might. With that said, when you come out of high school as a 3-star quarterback, you go to Jackson State, you play pretty well there, you transfer to Colorado, and you get an NIL deal for $4.5 million from a school that hasn't done anything in about 15 years, just because your name is Sanders, and not just because, in a lot of ways, because your name is Sanders, is twofold. What people are saying is, well, it's because he's Deion Sanders. This is why they're saying this. Well, he got a lot of benefit being Deion's son as well. That $4.5 million NIL deal coming off of being a three-star quarterback who played last at Jackson State University and HBCU, right? Then you've got a guy who came in who said, hey, I'm going to do everything I need to do to prepare myself for the NFL. Great numbers, all those things are there. But for me, and someone that said, hey, he played great when the lights were brightest, I kind of laughed at that. I don't remember seeing any bright lights and historical talent that Shedeur Sanders and the Colorado Buffs went up against during his 2-year tenure there as a starting quarterback. Okay, that's no dig on him. He doesn't do the schedule. But what I'm saying is, let's pump our brakes and let's slow down before we crucify the guy and before we make him a Hall of Famer. Let's let it play out. He's a 5th-round pick. He's in Cleveland. He has the opportunity to separate himself from those other quarterbacks and shut all those naysayers up. Either he's going to do it or he's going to continue to make excuses, or along with his fans and his supporters. I say it needs to be do your job, handle your business, and when you get out there on the field to be able to play, make a difference then. So, again, I'll wrap it up with saying I believe he's going to be better than Ward. I believe that him being a 5th-round pick should put him in a situation where he has and feel like he has something to prove, and he does. So go out there and make it happen. That's my 2 cents on Shedeur Sanders, and I promise I won't bring him up again in the rest of these segments that we have. So on to my guy Ramon Stalling.
I'm gonna start off with a little math. All right, before I go into anything. Shedeur Sanders has about a 70+% completion rate, right? That's what we've heard, right? 70+. All right. We also heard from people who watched the game film that 50% of his passes are 5 yards or less, right? So let's take a sample size of 10, all right? So if 50% are 5 yards or less, out of 10, 5 passes are 5 yards or less, all right? Let's say, for simple math's sake, he completes all 5 of those 5-yard or less passes. So to get the 70% mark, he only needs to complete 2 more passes. So from 6 yards to 100 yards, he is 2 of 5. That is not a pro first-round quarterback. Numbers lie. In my previous life as a stockbroker, I could make a number say whatever it needed to say for me to advise someone on a stock or to manipulate their portfolio. I think that the numbers were manipulated a lot for him based on the type of offense they ran and what they did. We heard about they didn't have a run game, right? Well, if you pass that much, you probably practice passing that much. So when do these linemen get in the groove of run blocking, of drive blocking, of duo blocking, of pulling? It was it was built to put him in a position to get drafted extremely high, far as the numbers wise. And then now you manipulate the media because so many of those guys in the media are either his friends, because all of the NFL guys now are on ESPN or Fox or have their own podcast. So those are his boys, and I got boys, and they're not going to say a bad thing about my son, and I'm not going to say a bad thing about their sons. All right. Then you got the other people in the media that Deion basically bullies all the time. Either bullies or he caresses them, he finesses them, because his wordplay is outstanding. Now, I do think Shedeur is an incredible college quarterback, because in college, you can be a system quarterback and produce. In the pros, you got to be good. And that's where I think that GMs looked at his film, looked at how they played, and said, hey, I don't know if he's good enough or valued enough for me to go in these first 3 rounds for him. Now, that's coupled with the fact that his father going to be kind of loud in the media. He's going to think he knows a lot more than he probably does know, and he may not listen to me, or he may listen to his dad. Is this worth the first through third round pick? That's the question. Like, your skill set say this, but everything else you do say this. In combination and totality, I don't know if I want to spend that money for you. Now, we go listen to the GM for the Browns speak. He said some interesting things and used some interesting words. He said that when they saw Shedeur in the 5th round, that he would that the price tag now, he's kind of like, you get him for a bargain. So if he says that, then that means on the flip side, he didn't think the value was right in the first 3 rounds. So that puts him as, oh, we kept our eye on you, but we thought you were 4th round money, and we don't think you're 1st through 3rd round money. That's one thing. The second thing he said was, nothing is guaranteed to him. He's going to have to come in here and compete. So that makes me believe that people think or thought that he's never competed before. He was always handed everything. As a coach, that's scary. The third thing he said was, we don't look at this as a blockbuster deal. We think he'll outperform his draft place, but we wouldn't consider this a blockbuster pick. So they're not even viewing him as, wow, we got Shedeur. He's kind of in a place where we've seen this before in college. Athletes, they do great in college because the scheme benefits their type of play, but it doesn't translate in the pros. Tim Tebow, the quarterback from Missouri, who was number 3 in the Heisman Trophy race and didn't get drafted. And we can keep going in multiple sports. Fredette, the young white kid who slam dunks everywhere. He's in the G League, but he's always winning the NBA slam dunk contest. Like, sometimes you do not translate to that next level. And I think that's what Shedeur ran into. And people who are not football people couldn't see that. All they saw was numbers. Oh, 71%, 75%, blah, blah, blah. You looking at I looked at the BYU game, looked at every pass he threw. I mean, you looking at Travis Hunter taking a 3-yard screen, 70 yards. Guess what? He gets 70 yards passing for that, and you only threw the ball 2. I give a small story that has nothing to do with Travis. My sophomore year, they moved me to quarterback in high school to run the veer offense. We had an All-American running back named George Montgomery that ended up, may rest in peace, went to Arizona State. Led the Pac-10 one year in rushing, actually. I look in the paper one day, and it says I rushed for 18 yards. And I'm like, nah, no way. I broke way more runs than that. Mom called the Post-Tribune, Gary Post-Tribune. Then it was explained to me that if I turn the corner and run for 40 yards and pitch it to George on the option, and he runs for 3 and scores, he gets a 43-yard touchdown, and I don't get anything. Not one part of the stat. I never pitched the ball again after 10 yards. Sometimes the scheme is built a certain way. Another story before we end. Coaching at North Central, my son had 100 tackles in the MIC conference. Koch, that's kind of hard to do. Outside linebacker, 100 tackles in the MIC. Our safeties had 90 tackles in the MIC. We had 300 tackles between 3 people. I thought as a coach, man, these guys are Big Ten players. Then I figured out that we filter everything to one side, one backer, and we put our safeties in the run game extremely quick on half the coverages. So the next year when my son graduated, another kid came in, and he got 100 tackles. And then he graduated, and another kid came in, and he got 100 tackles. And then I figured out what BVD said. I thought it was me. Wasn't you. It's the scheme. I'm done, y'all.
Well, I think we all handled it well. I think everyone made some good points. It was shocking, and I kind of said it too to Daryl on the phone on Thursday night. I said, I think for me, why it was so shocking was because we've seen these teams reach for quarterbacks year over year, right? The Colts You could say reach for Richardson, and I said that in the video that I put out on Friday. You could say the Colts reach for Richardson based off his athleticism and stuff like that. And then, Ramon, I credited you in that video saying you made a good point. Shedeur's just average at everything, right? You could say coming out of this draft, Cam Ward is good and maybe great in one category. Shedeur is basically average in every category. And I said it in the video. I think you could say Milroe is good in some category, right? His athleticism is maybe good to great, and Shedeur is just maybe average in that type of category. And I think in this draft, you saw teams kind of say the quarterbacks were ranked a certain way. I don't think teams really regarded that. They in most cases, these teams will go off best available when it comes to the quarterback. And I think this time they went off personal preference, right? Tyler Shough. I don't think anyone thought Shough was going to go in that spot. And we talked about it in the group chat. You like Shough. I'm a little iffy about him. I don't know too much about him, but and we kind of had that talk in the group chat, but I think it's really interesting how this draft played out on the quarterback side of things, right? I really like where Milroe ended up in Seattle. I think Shough in New Orleans, I don't think it plays out. I think New Orleans is going to have to find an answer somewhere else, but it's fine. And even, we didn't even talk about this yet, Cleveland drafted Dillon Gabriel in the 3rd round and then went back and got Shedeur. And the biggest thing, and they're probably going to be in my loser section for this draft, is the Pittsburgh Steelers. No quarterback at all, I think, is a misstep for this organization. Unless Aaron Rodgers is coming to Pittsburgh,
this draft was Will Howard, right? Will Howard.
They got Will Howard? Oh, I didn't even see that. Okay, well, never mind. Never mind then. But it's just this draft was very interesting to me, and I think Shedeur ending up in Cleveland. And I said it to my stepdad this morning. I think it's his worst case scenario because you're right now he's 5th on the depth chart, and my stepdad said, "Well, you can't really say that." I'm like, "Well, you've got in my mind it's Watson, Flacco, Pickett, Gabriel, Shedeur. You can make Gabriel and Shedeur tied for 4 and 5.
I don't believe Watson will be on the roster at the start of the season. I think,
and I agree, but I'm just saying for now
because remember he tore his Achilles just a short while ago, so he's not playing this upcoming season anyway. So I think there's going to be some type of an agreement. So I was talking about that same way as well. So now you're talking about 4 quarterbacks, right? So now you're thinking Flacco, I think, is going to be the guy because you want a veteran, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think Flacco's a guy.
And he knows that situation too.
Right. Then you got Pickett. I think it's between Gabriel and Shedeur for the 3rd string quarterback. That's what I believe. I mean, could I be wrong? I absolutely could be wrong.
I think one of them could overtake Pickett too, for sure.
Well, we'll see. But I think, whoever the draft pick is for this year will be, if he's on the team, he'll be the 3rd quarterback, whoever it may be. If it's Dillon Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders.
I think Cleveland had an outstanding draft. I think they had an outstanding draft.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand what they're doing at the quarterback spot. This is what I don't understand. You look at if Flacco's the starter, and I think he will be, and you look at how they'll play with Flacco and how they'll scheme with Flacco, who is more like him? I think Shedeur is more like him, so he'll end up being a backup because it's a seamless transition if he gets hurt.
And Schefter put out a report. I gotta find the tweet. Ramon, go ahead. I gotta find the tweet.
Now, if you look at the other two, Kenny Pickett and my man from Oregon, they're alike. Both can run, quick release. So you got 4 quarterbacks, 2 alike. So depending on who win it, I think it'll shape up who's number 2. Unless Kenny wins it and then your boy's number 2, Flacco, but then you change up so much stuff.
Yeah. So Schefter,
I don't think that Flacco goes there thinking he's going to be on the bench. I think he goes there thinking I'm going to be the starter because of the Deshaun situation. And I just think that I think he's the leader in the clubhouse. But I mean, let me say something real quick, Ramon, to your point about Cleveland in their draft. So, you kind of taking a little bit of my thunder. I'm a big fan of Dylan Sampson out of Tennessee, right? And a lot of people slept on Dylan Sampson out of Tennessee. This guy is an SEC Offensive Player of the Year. I posted his accolades, Ramon, in our group. And someone else posted all the accolades of Shedeur Sanders. And I said, where's the outrage on Dylan Sampson being a 4th-round pick? SEC Offensive Player of the Year, collectively, top 2 conference. You can split hairs. SEC, Big Ten, NFL talent, week in, week out. He's going against, and there's no outrage. You know why there's no outrage? Because his name is not Dylan Sanders. Yeah. That's why.
The marketing machine, man.
It goes both ways, and that's my point. So you watch as this goes. Cleveland did have a good draft, in my belief, right? I believe even to the point of where I wouldn't be surprised if they're knocking on the door from a playoff spot as long as Flacco's their quarterback. That's
Mason Graham. Mason Graham, how much I hate Michigan. Y'all see that?
Man.
I hate Michigan. Mm-hmm. The boy gonna be ready to play from day one.
Yeah.
And not gonna be ready to play. He gonna be effective from day one.
So
Quinshon Judkins, the boy dominated the SEC and the Big Ten. Mm-hmm. He gonna be ready to play from day one. Sampson dominated the SEC. He gonna be ready to play from day one. They got a ball squad, man, in that draft. How they figure out this quarterback thing gonna be another thing.
We talk about Deion, and Schefter put out a tweet. He said Deion Sanders and Browns quarterback coach Bill Musgrave were teammates and friends during their time playing together for the Niners. Sanders and Musgrave have remained friends, and Sanders trusts and believes in Musgrave, who will now coach his son. So that was the tweet Schefter put out.
As a father, you want to be able to have your child go to a place where you're comfortable at. Mm-hmm. And that's all well and good until they say to him, that young man, get the clipboard, get your baseball hat, and that's what you're going to do the rest of the year. Adversity changes a lot of things. Let's see how it plays out. I've seen a lot of good friends fall apart over some real simple things. So it's great that Adam Schefter is tweeting that, but let's see what happens in week 6. Flacco's not playing very well. The backup came in, didn't play very well at all. However, QB 12 didn't get in the game. Let's see what happens then. Let's see what type of birdies start talking about at that point, right? So, but to that point, I said I wasn't going to say any more about the Sanders kid, and we veered over to it again. So I promise I'm done with Cleveland talk and Sanders talk.
No, Cleveland, we got one more thing. Cleveland, we got to talk about one more thing, and that's probably the trade. But go ahead with the last thing for Sanders, though.
No, all I was just going to say was, he had an interview. It was a media interview, I guess, yesterday, and he spoke about, hey, what do you have to prove? And he said, I've got nothing to prove to anyone but the coach and the owner. Wouldn't it have been nice 6 weeks ago if that type of conversation would have came out, right? Sometimes you got to play the role. And I'm tired. Cam Ward not only was coached well at University of Miami, he was coached well when the season ended. This young man came to the draft in a sport coat, a thin chain, a University of Miami placard on his jacket, said all the right things, talked about being humble and just working hard, going at it, right? I'm not saying that you got to stay humble and you can't be confident. Yeah, be confident. But Ward was the antithesis of Sanders. Whatever Sanders did, they said, Ward, you're going to be the opposite. Ward is the number 1 pick, and Sanders is the 5th-round pick.
Yep.
Mic drop.
Did you guys watch? They had a compilation video of Ward and Sanders together working out. Mm-hmm. And some of the things that Ward said to Sanders' face, and this is someone who's in the same boat as him, and what he said to him several times.
Go ahead and say it. Someone that looks like him. Go ahead and say it.
Someone who looks like him, walks and talks like him. So he said, he said, if I threw check downs and bubble screens, my percentage would have been 90%, not 70. That was one. He took a shot at him. But the biggest one, I'm gonna tell you this. He said this. I'm gonna tell you the biggest one yet. He said, I guess Sanders said, let's go do a song together. He said, I don't want to do a song. I'm a football player. I want to be known for football. When they say Cam Ward, They should say American football player. And that was the quote. That was 2. The third thing he said, you got an award and it was political. He flat out said it. You got an award and it was political. This is your colleague. This is your friend. This is your training buddy.
This is your peer. Remember, Ramon?
This is your
This
peer.
is your peer saying this, right?
Yes. This is not Facebook, Twitter, X. This is not the analyst. This is your peer saying that you got an award and it was political. So this is a guy who plays the same position as you at the same time in the same draft saying you didn't deserve that award and that your numbers are inflated and that you're not focused on football, you're focused on being famous.
All right. Well, we got about 10 minutes.
I guess he ain't black either.
We got about 10 minutes left here in the segment. So I guess let's end this segment off by talking about the top of the draft, and then we'll continue on with the draft talk so we can talk about the other stories that happened in this draft. But to end off this segment, we'll stay with Cleveland and we'll talk about what happened at the top of the draft. So we kind of discussed Cameron Ward a little bit. He went number 1 overall to Tennessee, and then the draft really got started. I want to tell you guys my draft story. So when I came home, I got off work at 8:00. I went and grabbed a pizza at Donato's and I rushed home. Ward already got announced as the number 1 pick. My mom and my stepdad were in the kitchen and they were sitting there watching the draft. And I said, I kid you not, I came home and I said, I'm home just in time because we're about to get a trade. And then as I turned the corner to go into the kitchen to grab the pizza, Schefter comes on and announces that trade between Cleveland and Jacksonville. And I've had to sit on this trade because on first thought, I did not like this trade for Cleveland, because in my mind, and I said it in the mock draft, I think it's you should not pass up on Abdul Carter and Myles Garrett being together in the backfield. And I think I gave a little discredit to Mason Graham and how good of a player he is, because I was just like, man, I don't know how you pass up, 1, on Travis Hunter, but 2, and the one that I thought they should have went with was Abdul Carter and Myles Garrett. But you get next year's first-round pick, and I don't think Jacksonville's going to be that good. You got a chance to get right back in the top 5 and get what's going to be a way better quarterback class than this one. You've got Drew Aller from Penn State, Arch Manning you're going to have a lot of quarterback options next year where people think these quarterbacks are going to be 10 times better, right? They're saying we're going to see 4 quarterbacks in the first round, and that's just off early glance. I like this trade for Cleveland way more than I did on draft day. Now that I've had time to think it over. What are your guys' thoughts on the trade? This will be the last segment we do before we go to the next segment, which will be the other parts of the draft.
I'll go, and I'll be real quick. I think Cleveland killed it. I think they killed it. You look at this, all right? They drafted they got the trades, right? So they got a chance to get – they got 2 quarterbacks, 2 young quarterbacks, right? If next year's quarterback draft is better and Jacksonville doesn't do well, they right back in the market for another quarterback, and they can get rid of them that one off the numbers, that one old guy and one of these young guys. Boom, and not miss a beat. That's one thing. We talk about pass rush. They just got somebody from the middle, and that's the hardest pressure. When you get pressure up the middle, it's hard for quarterbacks. So now they can stop the run and they can go after the pass with that number 1 pick. They got 2 durable running backs who can pound it, who can take some pressure off the old quarterback or the young quarterback. They already got a great secondary. Draft capital, man, they killed it. They had an A+ draft.
Yep. And I'll say to this point, right? So, you're right. The next season's quarterback class is projected to be better, but we never know how that may shake out, right? Even if it's not, you still got draft capital that you can pivot around next season as well. But also, too, you got these holdovers. If you don't need a superior great quarterback to win the Super Bowl necessarily. If you got a great team around him, a great defense, viable offensive line, I'm not going to take a jab at my guy Jalen Hurts because everybody knows how I love him. but Jalen Hurts is a very good quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Man, he has some great things around him, and I love it because he deserved it. All he went through while in college, and then all the social media negativity that he received after that game against Clemson. Don't get me started on that. The racist comments and commentary towards him. I believe he deserves everything he gets, and he's got a great offensive line. He's got a coaching staff that believes in him. So to that point, I don't think Cleveland's going to be rushed to go jump and get a quarterback next year, even if one of those quarterbacks, whoever's playing, just has an okay to good season. Mm-hmm. I think they're going to stand pat and they're going to build, because I think Cleveland's got something to build for the next couple of years with that draft capital, as Ramon spoke about. You got, Myles Garrett locked up. He's happy. And now you've got an opportunity for guys to come in and say, look, this I'm not going to say Cleveland's going to be a destination spot. No. But with Mason Graham in the middle, pushing that pile, it's going to be interesting to see how Cleveland shakes out. But I like what they did more than anyone. I like the fact that Travis Hunter is in Jacksonville. They need some buzz. They need Jacksonville, Duval County needs some buzz, right? And here's the thing about him. Did you notice how excited he was at being at the draft? And he kept talking about getting better. It's my job. It's my profession. He never talked about me, about how it's going to affect me. He says my job. And I love the interview when he said, I got questions I'm going to ask. He says, I've been playing football all my life. I'm going to have questions. And when they said, what room are you going to be in when it's all said and done? They said, are you going to be in the offensive room or the defensive room? He said both.
And that's where I give credit to Jacksonville. They are gonna let him play both sides and figure out which one he's better at. And I love that they're doing that. And I think, and I said this is a ballsy move from Jacksonville. Jacksonville's GM, I believe, is one, if he's not the youngest, he's one of the youngest GMs in the NFL right now. And this was a ballsy move for Jacksonville to do. This is a completely new regime in Jacksonville. And you had to do this because Trevor Lawrence is he's just sitting there, right? This is a team that you couldn't say, I mean, they've been bad, right? And you have this generational guy in Trevor Lawrence who's viewed as this generational guy. And at this point, the talk is starting to creep in of, okay, what really is Trevor Lawrence? Is he going to get to that ceiling or what we think he's going to be? And I kind of said, I don't feel like most of this is Lawrence's fault. I definitely feel like this is on the organization. I like the Liam Cohen hire, and I like the trade that they made for Hunter. Now it's just a matter of, can Hunter perform on the offensive side of the ball or the defensive side of the ball, and can he be great at both? Or not great at both, can he be great at one? And I think for Jacksonville, they're probably hoping he's good on the offensive side of the ball, right? Because they really need receivers. But I think either way, you got a unicorn here. It's just a matter of how you're going to develop them. Ramon, do you have any thoughts before we end this segment?
Yeah, I just hope that they manage Travis Hunter the right way.
Yep.
Right now, I can't see him being great at anything, not because he doesn't have the athletic ability, because he sure does.
Mm-hmm.
But he's picking two positions in the NFL that you have to be very technical.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he's technical in any. I watched some of his route running, and he just beat people because he was a better athlete. But the route was slants that were rounded off, speed outs that he really didn't come back to the ball, stuff like that. So he's going to have to get good at something. And I just hope that they make sure that he gets very good at something and not just okay at two things.
Yeah, I agree for sure. When we come back, we are going to talk about everything else regarding the draft. I definitely want to get into some of the other picks, are also our winners and losers. I've got a couple in that regard as well. And of course, we're going to talk about the other quarterbacks and stuff like that as well. Don't go anywhere, folks. We've got more content coming up right here on the Game Time Podcast.